Hey guys, good evening. I hope I'm pretty much audible as well as visible. Great, so just do let me know, guys, if I'm audible as well as visible in the chat. So we have pretty much started with our discussion on pandas today. So we'll be introducing the pandas library in data science, right? And again, we are into a playlist of data analysis in 3 weeks. So this is again one of the very major topic which we wanted to cover, which is going to be a kind of a highlighter for you for the remaining of your other sessions. And then again, so we are pretty much starting a new course starting from 9th of April, which is Data Science Live, starting from 9th of April, and we'll be covering every needed topic in detail there. And this is just one of the gist which you can learn in Data Science Live course. So pandas becoming one of the mandatory key skills for any data scientist for any of your data analysis work, right? So pandas, NumPy, in that respect, we also run Seaborn, right? So these are very standard libraries, guys, in Python, and we have enough content to talk about these topic, and then we have, we should be really taking these very seriously. So this is one of the very important topics in data analysis, and pretty much used in your day-to-day data analysis work. Okay, so we'll be talking about pandas today. We'll be introducing pandas and what are the different methods we have available in this, and we'll try to solve few questions also. Okay, but again, we'll try to cover the few concepts as soon as possible, then we'll try to solve some other questions as well. Okay, so that's going to be agenda for today. So we'll be introducing pandas, but again, as always, as I've said, it's pretty much a live session, so please utilize the time. If you have any questions, anything which you want to discuss in Python, of whatever topics we have discussed so far, like be it from stats, sorry, be it from functions, be it from list, tuples, dictionaries, anything, right? So anything in general also, like any career oriented questions, so you can always ask that. But before starting, as always, I'll introduce myself. My name is Arpit Jain, and I'm a lead data scientist myself. I have almost 9 years of industry experience into multiple domains that includes manufacturing, automobile, telecommunication, banking. So I've been into multiple domains as a data science guy, and that's the beauty of being in data science. And also, along with that, I'm a motivational speaker. So I take industry sessions. I talk to students regarding their job, career profile. So anything specific regarding career or anything else, right? So do put up your question in the chat. I'll try to take that to the best of my knowledge. So we can obviously discuss in that front as well. Great. So that's pretty much about myself. So I'll quickly jump to the content which I've prepared for pandas. So let me quickly open that. Just give me a minute. Right, so do let me know, guys, if my screen is visible. Right, so it should be visible. Yeah, so I think my screen should be visible now. Okay, so we are pretty much into pandas tutorial. So that's what we have for the day. So we'll be doing a lot of things on pandas. So we'll see how things are shaping up. Okay. So let me just quickly give you a brief about pandas, and then let's get started. Okay. So pandas nothing but is one odd library. It's nothing but a library. Hey Akash, I just saw your message. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope others are also joining in. Great. So pandas, as I said, so pandas is again one odd library. It's nothing but a library which is available in Python and written by someone. And then it has some inbuilt methods or functionalities which is very useful for your day-to-day data analysis work, right? And that is the reason why we thought to add this pandas as a topic in our playlist, which is data analysis in 3 weeks. Okay. So that's what the agenda is, and we'll be going very much deep in pandas. So what we have in pandas, what all things can we do, so what are different options we have. So that's pretty much pandas we'll be talking about. Okay. So how to install pandas is again very simple. Okay, so installation of pandas is again very simple. So what we can do is so simple. So as always, pip install pandas. Okay, so that's what it says. So we can use the pip installer to install the pandas library. Okay, as simple as that. So once you install it, you can obviously import pandas. So you can use any alias. So PD is the most commonly used alias, pandas as PD, so we can use anything again. So again, Pandas has been released in multiple versions. So as you know, so we can check the versions of Pandas pd dot underscore underscore version underscore underscore. If we do that, we're gonna see the latest version, what version I'm running on. Okay. So there are certain version issues. So because if you go on a very latest version, there might be some issues in the kind of interaction with other libraries. So some methods might not be, supporting in other compatible with other version of my other libraries. So versioning is very important. So I always use kind of a downgraded version of Pandas. This is not the latest version. So I always use a downgraded version of Pandas because it always helps to kind of float around my things across different because you tend to use multiple such libraries, right? So I generally use that, but again, it's up to you. So you can use anything, right? So the very first thing which is available in Pandas which you can do is series. Okay, so we'll talk about data frames, which is very commonly used one in data analysis. But again, before that, we'll first talk about series. So what is a series in Pandas? So series in general is nothing but a sequential object, right? So nothing but a series or a sequential type of an object. Okay. So in series, like for example, how to call series. So series has a function called as series, seris. So series is an object of Pandas. So pd dot series, that's what I'll be calling it as. Okay. So as always, if I'm going to use any of the function, we can see what all options are available in this, right? So for example, if I write pd dot series, and if I put a parenthesis here and I put shift tab, okay. So as soon as I put shift tab here, as I've told you before also, there's a small doc which gets opened up, right? So here you can see we have options like data, we have index, we have dtype, we have name, copy, fast path, right? So multiple such arguments, multiple such options are available which can be provided along with series. So series has to be fed with some data, right? So also as you can see here, everything has a default value, right? So even if I won't pass anything, it'll take the default value. What is that? Data is none, index is none, dtype is none, a name is none. So everything is given a default value, right? So yes, so even if I run simply pd.series, it will still run and it will create an empty object. When you see this, it will create an empty object. So it won't give an error because what is the reason for that? Every other argument is actually given a default value here, right? So everything is given a default value, right? So now what does this mean? Inside this, you can see the option of data and then the index, right? So pretty much these two are the most important ones and also definitely the data type as well. So these are the most commonly used arguments. So what is this? So data means the data which I want to provide to make sure that, okay, use this as a data, okay? And then index. For each of my data points, I'm also specifying what index to be given. Default, if I won't give, it'll take the default values, right? So, but I can also specify that. So for example, suppose look at this, right? So look at this data. For example, just give me a minute. I want to show you something first. Now, okay. So now what I'm trying to do is, we want to create, sorry, my bad. Right, so I'll give A, I'll give B. Okay, so now what I'm trying to make here is, I'm trying to make a series of elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So let's use this once for, okay? So I'll just pass this, okay? So what I'm doing is pd.series and I'm passing a list of elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? So so by default, what are my arguments here? Okay, so in arguments, two things are very important, okay? Either you can specify the name of the argument and then you can write the content, or you can directly write the content, okay? So for example, here in this case, I have not written the argument. So I have not written the name. So I have not written like this, data is equal to, I can also write data is equal to like this, or I can also pass this argument directly like this, okay? So what is the difference? If I write data is equal to this, then I'm specifying that data is this, okay? Now, for example, again, if I have to pass another argument, like say index, in that index, I can pass anything again. So same thing, suppose I want to pass same index, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I want to be taken as this index, okay? Also, what I can do is, if I'm passing the name directly, I can also reverse the order. Okay, so I can make this index as this and data as this. So both of them here in this case, my option 1 here and this option 2, they both are same. Okay, so I mean just remove the data, for example, say 6, my bad, yeah, don't get confused by this. So 6, 7, 8, and then I have 9, I have 10. Okay, so then this is like this. Okay. Yeah, so both of these things, like this one and this one, are same. Okay, because I'm specifying exactly what my data is. I'm specifying exactly what my data is and what my index is. Okay, but same thing, if I remove this here from data now and also from index, I'm not specifying anything what is this, and if I do this and I remove this one, okay, now this is different. These two are different things. Okay, why? Because in this case, if I'm not specifying the argument name directly, now it will follow the order. And how, what order? We have to follow the document. So here in order, data comes first, index comes second. Okay, so if I'm not specifying anything, it'll follow the order. So in this case, this becomes your data and the second becomes your index. Okay, and here in this case, opposite. Now this becomes your data and this becomes your index. So just the opposite, right? If I'm not specifying the data and the index argument here. Okay, that is the reason why we can specify in both the ways. If you're writing the direct name of an argument, you can do whatever order you want to give. But if you're not specifying the argument name, then you have to make sure that you're following the order. Okay, so now for example, let's look at this. If I do it like this, right? So now I have the data 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my data, right? And what is the index value? This is my index 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by default. Now what if I won't give this? In this case, it'll take the by default ordering, which is Python default is 0. The indexing always starts from 0, right? So it'll always take the default indexing, which is like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my default ordering. But again, as I said, I can also give a manual index which I want to take. And this index is not necessarily be a number. I can have any index. So I can still give this as, say for example, I can give this as A, right? And I can also give this as, say, next as B, and then next as, say, 1, 2, and then I can also give this next. Okay, I think this one I missed here. Okay, my bad, I don't know what's happening here. Okay, and then I can give 3. This is also fine. Okay, this is also pretty much fine. So I can have one numeric and one string. That's also fine. So I can, this is my indexes now. Okay, indexes could be anything. I can specify, I can give a name also as my index. Okay, so this is what the series is. It's more of a sequential object, which is getting created here, and I'm specifying the data and the indexes. Okay, and this is pretty much customizable. I can give anything here. So like the ways you can see here, I have given my name Arpit, Arpit1, and then data is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is pretty much valid. So I can have indexing like this. So index is Arpit and Arpit1, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as my individual numbers, as my data. Okay. So this is what we have. One way to create my dictionaries. So one way to create my series. So I am passing this as a list of elements. Okay. So how I'm creating a series element here? I'm passing the data points as a series of elements. Okay, as a series of my elements here. So that's how I'm creating my series. Okay. The second way to create this series object is by using a dictionary values. Okay. So series, I'm creating a series through a dictionary value. So what are my dictionary values and how it is getting created? So now look at this option. So I have created a dictionary here, run kilometer. So and I have an options here like day 1, day 2, and day 3, right? So day 1 has the value of this, day 2 has a value of this, and day 3 has a value of this, right? So if I use this concept where I'm passing a key and the value pair in terms of a dictionary, right? And then I'll pass this entire dictionary on top of my series function. Okay. So earlier we were passing a list object, right? We were passing a list object over my series. So we converted that list element into series, right? But now what if I give my key and the values here on top of my series? So now again, even this is possible. In this case, the keys become my indexes. You can see that the keys become my indexes, and the value which is 10.01, 12.24, 15.7, it becomes my exact elements, my data points. Okay, even this is possible. So by default, you'll take the keys as your index and the values as your data points. Okay, that's what it does. So likewise, we are pretty much fine here. So here you can see this by default, it has taken the data type as float 64. Why? Because it's a default value of floating. It's a decimal value, right? So it will take the default as floating. So that is the reason why the elements are floating here. Okay, and even this case, now, okay, this is something interesting example. So now look at this. This is another example. So I have A, B, and C here. Okay, I have three elements. Okay, I have three elements here. Now I'm passing this series object into my data, and also passing a separate index here. Okay, ideally it should have taken this A, B, and C as my elements here, as my keys, right? But now I'm specifying the index as B and A only. Can anyone guess what will happen here? Guys, there are some tricky things. Take a random guess, okay? So I'm not asking you to give me a right answer here. Even a random guess is pretty much fine. So can you guess what should happen here? So right, so we observed, right? So if we pass it a dictionary, the keys will be taken as my index and the values will be taken at my data points, right? But now here I'm on top of my already existing keys, I'm passing another index. What will happen? Take a random guess, Akash, or anybody who is part of our chat. Just take a random guess, guys. See, if you won't interact, there won't be fun. I mean, I'll just keep on talking, right? So try to answer something. So even take a random guess, pretty much fine. What do you think should happen here? Let me show it to you. Now I've saved it under the S, right? Now let me print S, and how does it look like? Can you see this? Now what has happened is, it has not changed the values. Look at it very carefully. So I have elements like A is initially marked at 0, B is 1, and C is 2, right? Now this data is pretty much given here S. So I am making sure that the index value A is giving the data value 0, index values B is given the data value 1, likewise for C. But now on top of this, I'm trying to give index as B and A. So what it has done is, it has simply filtered the data points from the existing ones and has given the data in the right order, whatever indexes we have passed, right? So first I wanted B, so B1 got printed here, and then the A, which is 0, so initially A was before B, right? But this indexes, in this giving index has reversed the order, I mean whatever the index I have given, and is given as printed here, right? Now again, one thing which we can try to do is, maybe we can try to give another scale, which is say D here, for example. So B and D. D is not existing, right? So what will happen in this case? So I have indexes as B and D. So B is definitely available 1, but what about D? D is not existing key. Will it give me an error, or will it still print me anything? Quickly guys, do you want to take this a guess? This will give me an error, or this will give me a result? Just type in the chat. This should give you an error, or this will give you a result. What will happen if you pass D along with B here? D is not existing key. What will happen here, guys? Quickly. This will give you an error, or this will print something. Anybody wants to take a guess here? Akash or anyone? D as error. So Hellfire has given answer D as error. Okay, let's check that. Let's quickly check that. So now, so to give you the surprise, it will not give you an error. Okay, it'll give you the data points where this index is there and a null value where the index is not there. Okay, cool. Akash, Hellfire, makes sense, right? So here by default, D, the index which is not present will not give you an error. Okay, it will still give you the data, but the missing data here. The data is not present in that index by default. Okay, so these are some tricky questions, guys. That is the reason why I try to give you these small examples, and these can be asked in your standard data analysis interviews. Okay, great. Moving ahead. Yeah, same thing. So same data point. So I have this A here, right? So I have A, B, and C. What if I give, and now indexes X, Y, and Z. So if I group this X, Y, and Z here, they all are not available. So they all will be given as nan, right? So they all are not available. Pretty simple as that. Now you know that, right? So it won't give you an error if I am passing the key value pair here, right? If only if I am passing a key value pair here and the keys already present in the dictionary. So I have the keys here as A, B, and C, right? So these index are already present in my data now. These keys are already present in my series element also once I've passed it. Now this index filter will happen on the available keys. Okay, so that's how it happens. Cool. Great. So here again, I'll show you one more example. So B, C, D, A, you pretty much know it. So it'll print the data for B, C, and A, but not for D and D. For that, I'll be getting the nan value here. Okay. So now look at this example. This is a very interesting example. So now, what if I want to create I want to replicate or duplicate a same element multiple times. I want to replicate the same element multiple times in the data. So for example, like this. So I want to create the series with the element 10 repeating 5 times. Okay, repeating 5 times. Okay. So now this is what I wanted here, right? So what I've just given is only single element 10. Okay, only a single element 10 here, and I've specified the number of indexes on which I want this element 10 to be copied on. Okay, so what I give 0, 1, 2, 3, and 5. Remember guys, I have not written 4 here. Okay, it's just 5. So this is very important. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 5. So although 5 index starting from 0. Okay, so it could have been 4. So it's just the same thing. So 5 elements here, or I just omitted the index 4 and then I've written 5. Okay, that's pretty much it. So what I've done here is I've tried to replicate the same element 10 5 times in my data. So how can I do that? I can just write the element 10 and the number of times and the indexes where I want this element 10 to be copied on. Okay, this is pretty much how we do that. Okay, cool. Another thing, for example, if I want the elements like 10 and 20 now. Okay, so I have what? So I have both the elements. So I instead of having one element 10, I want both 10 and 20 to be replicated 5 times. Okay, so I want both 10 and 20 to be replicated 5 times. So what I'm doing is I'm passing the elements 10 and 20 both here over the indexes which I want to be part of and where I want the data to be replicated. So this is how it should be. Okay. Cool, interesting. So okay, so now here I'm getting an error. The reason to that is now the problem is, although I wanted this 10 to be printed 5 times and also 20 to be printed 5 times. So what I wanted, my objective is I wanted a series element which is like this. So 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, and then I wanted 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. Okay, so this is what I actually wanted. Okay, so instead of only one element, I wanted 10 and 20 to be printed 5 times. So I tried the same approach. In which I gave 10 and the indexes where I want to be replicated. But the problem here is as soon as I enclose these multiple elements in a list, so now the length of my data point is 2 and I'm passing it over 5 indexes. So now this logic is wrong. Okay, so I cannot give 2 data points and 5 indexes. For the 2 data points, I can only give 2 indexes, right? So somehow if I have to replicate it, I cannot do it by using the same logic which I'm using here. Okay. Now for that, if I have something like this, I can still do that, but we have a separate function for that. Okay, so in the series element, we have something called as repeat. Okay, so we have a repeat function and we want to use repeat function to create the sub elements. Okay, so for example, look at this example, same here. So for example, this, if I do 10, right? So I can have this 10 value repeated 5 times. Okay, and for the same thing, for example, like this, I can also have the repeat thing done on n and m value. So I can give 10 and 20. I can specify how many times I want 10 to be repeated and how many times I want 20 to be repeated. So I want say 10 to be repeated 5 times and 20 to be repeated only 2 times. So I can do it pretty much like this as well. So if I do it like this, so now here I could see 10, 10, 10, 10, and then I have 20 and 20. Okay. So this is pretty much what I would have here. Make sense, guys? I think we have a couple of questions. Let me take that. So Hellfire has, what if we want to repeat same value to 100 index? Yeah, same pretty much fine. So just give the indexes. So repeat n. So repeat, give 100 there. So I think you can do that. Is there some increment Append that we pass or just write the numbers in index variable? just there's no logic of increment there. You can pass any random value indexes. So as I said, indexes is pretty much manual. If you won't pass anything, it'll take the default increment, which is like +1, right? +1 numeric integer as your default indexes. But it is pretty much customizable. You can have your own any random indexes also. But you have to make sure that the data points and the number of indexes are pretty much matching up. Okay. Okay, good. So Akash, does it create different object for 10? No, not at all. So it does not create a different object. It still creates the same single object. So Python data object still remains one only, but internally the depth of that object will change. So I mean the data size of that object will change depending on the data, right? So that's how it is. Okay, cool. So but good questions, guys. Thank you so much for asking that. Great. So now let's look at this. This is again important. So let me print S for you here. So I'm just creating an S, okay? So I have 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. The indexes 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. I've specified it here, okay? Now accessing is pretty simple again, okay? So accessing is still pretty simple. So like the way we were accessing the list element by using the start and the end functionality, right? Still pretty much works here, okay? Still pretty much works here. So now what is S here for me? S is nothing but my series object 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50, right? So I can do multiple things to access my element. First is by index. I can directly specify the index, say 3, for example here. So 3 is what? 30, right? So I can get 30 here. What if I give, say by default, so initially you can see the first element should be 0, right? So this is my default indexing. So what if I give, say S of 0 here, right? I'll get an error because now this index 0 does not exist. Although my default indexing of the first integer is 10, of first value is 0, but that index 0 is still not present here, right? Because I have manually changed this index. I've changed this index from 0 to 1 because now I'm calling 0 as 1. I can still give anything here. So what if I give, say, this 1 as A or B? So in that sense, I would have to call not 1, I would have to call A here. If I would have called A, then it would have been A, then 10 would have been called. Okay. So this index value, I have to specify it here to access the element. Okay. What if I give 3? I'll get the third index, which is my 30 here. The index number, not the third, index number 3 in this case. Okay. Also pretty much, so we can also specify the last number by this. So -1 will still work. So what if I still give S of minus 1? Okay, my bad. Okay, my bad. This is not a list element. So by first, so I mean this is still not possible. So because we don't have the key -1 here. So again, this will give me an error because I'm not writing. So again, remember guys, this is not a list. This is a series element. Okay. So we have to specify what index we are trying to identify. That is something which will give me the values. But it'll keep on giving me the error if I won't give -1. If I give -1, it won't be able to identify because it's not giving me -1 as the last element or 0 as my first element. It'll give me an error. But now in this case, for the indexing, for the start value, right? So now here I'm saying 1 till -1. So in this case, it is pretty much fine. So starting from the 1th, so which is like, so for the first index is 2 here in this case, and the -1, nothing but my last 2 minus character, this is n-1, is like 40. So this is where I can still get. So what we'll do is, here in this 1 to -1, so like character like start, right, till end -1. So you can, this is what it means here in this case. This is how I'll be getting the indexer. Slightly different from the list, but still you can do it while you pass -1 as your range over my start to end. But you cannot directly access -1 if you give the index values -1. You cannot directly access that. Okay, slight bit of difference. Also, you can give a multi-level indexing. So you can also pass multiple indexes. Suppose you want to access, say, 1 and 4 at this moment, right? So you can do, so if I give, say, 1 here and 1 and 4, you can access 1 and 4 like this. So multiple indexing is also pretty much possible. Okay. So this is pretty much how you access the series element. Okay. So now moving ahead, I'm trying to show you some of the interesting and most frequently used functions in Pandas series. So some of the functions as in some of the arithmetic functions like absolute, sum. So these are some very important and most frequently used functions used in Pandas series, which is pretty much used in your day-to-day data analysis job. So I'll try to cover that. So now look at this. I've created two series here. So first series is my numbers. So which has 1, 2, -3, -4, and 5. So any value is pretty much okay, right? And then I have another series which is a string. So I have A, B, C, D, and E here. Okay. So I have series and series 1. So two different series. And I have so first is my numbers and second is my indexes. Second is my strings. Okay. So now if I give series 1, I have A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, so I have A, B, C, D, and E here, and I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 as my index values. Pretty much I have it here. Okay. So now what I want here is, I want this. So now for example here, so this is my series. I'll just put series 1 for now. This is my 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now my objective is, I have the first function as ABS or absolute. Okay, so if I call absolute over my series object, which is by default expected, that will give me all the positive values, right? So if I call absolute over this, now all the negative value, which is -3 and -4, has been converted now to 3 and 4, right? So by default, so I have just called absolute function over my series object. So look at this, guys. So absolute is an object of my series element. So that is the reason why I'm calling dot ABS. I have not called ABS underscore like this. I'm calling series dot ABS. That means that ABS is an object of series. Okay, it's an object type. So it's an object of series. So we can call ABS as an object. Okay. So now here, if I run it like this, I'll get all the positives. Pretty simple as that. Now what if I call series 1 dot ABS? So I have it here. So now look at this, guys. So series is my numbers, but series 1 is my integers. Sorry, is my strings, right? So can somebody tell me what will happen if I call series 1.abs? If I call abs function on top of my series 1 on my strings, what will happen? It'll give me an error or it'll give me something else. Quickly, guys, what will happen? You want to take a guess? Anybody wants to take a guess? What will happen if I pass absolute here, which is again all positive function on top of my series 1, which is a string? Hellfire says value error. Okay, great. So I have one response. Anybody is having any other response apart from Hellfire? Okay, let me show you that. ABS returns numbers only. So Akash says ABS returns numbers only, and even Hellfire says it should give value error. And guys, yes, it will give you an error. The reason is not the value, but the type error, because the operand is not supported, right? It's not a value error because there's no value is getting passed. It's more of an operand error, right? So it's like that is not supported. So I'll get a type error here where the string is not valid for absolute, right? So again, it's pretty much logical, right? So although it's a method, it's an object of my series class, but I cannot call absolute on any data type, right? I cannot call absolute on my string. That will give me an error. That is by default, right? So it's still pretty much valid. Still the logical explanation remains valid, right? So I have to call it over my series, which is a number object. Now I can expect absolute to run fine here. Cool. Great. Simple. The next is my aggregate, the AGG. Okay. So AGG is again a very, very good, I would say, my operand here. So AGG is very smart. Okay, so what it does, it tries to aggregate my things here. So aggregate means ultimately if I have say 100 data points here, 100 values. So ultimate end result of aggregate is like one value, right? So for example, min, max, and sum. So I can have only one minimum out of 100 values, right? I mean, it could be like multiple such numbers, but the number would be one only, right? So suppose -1. -1 could be frequency could be 10, but the ultimate value is one only, right? So I can only have one minimum value. Likewise maximum, likewise sum, right? So these are the values which can be aggregated, right? So these are functions which are aggregate functions, right? So ultimately on top of my data, I'm trying to find the aggregate of numbers in terms of minimum, maximum, or sum, right? So now whatever value I pass here, so for example, look at this. So I'm passing here, this is my series element. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20, 100, 200, -1. So what is my minimum here is -1. What is my maximum here is 200. And what is my sum here? Like sum of all of these. So this is what my ultimate result is, right? So now if I call this AGG function, which is an aggregate function on top of my series, and what is my series? I've just created the series here, okay? So this series element, I'm calling my aggregate function of minimum, maximum, and sum. So this is how my end result looks like. So I have minimum as -1, I have maximum as 200, and sum as 334. So this is what the sum looks like of my entire data. Cool. So aggregate is a very smart function, and in fact this aggregate is also used elsewhere as well. So once you have the data frame and you try to take the group bys, right? So when you take the group bys, I mean you try to group the data based on certain clusters or the keys. So it also helps there. So we can on top of such groups we can do the aggregation. So aggregate function is very smart function. We call it at multiple places. So for now we'll stick with AGG here. So some maximum and minimum width, that's what we did, right? Cool. Any questions, guys? Anybody is having any difficulty here? Please do let me know. So now moving ahead, another interesting function which we have is append. Okay. So append, we have already seen this append. Where else, guys? So we have seen this append in list, right? So we have seen this how we can append the elements in list, right? So it's like a like addition of an element on top of my existing list. That's what append does. So likewise here also we can append or concatenate two series here. So here append means again we are concatenating two different series elements. So for example, suppose I have this as my series 1, which is like all the elements here, and then I have series 2, which is 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Now I've created this. Okay, I'll quickly just see these. So these are my list. Okay, these are my series elements. So look at the indexes here, guys. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have these 9 indexes, right? So till 0 to 8. So these are my 9 indexes. Now I have another 5 indexes, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the elements are like these. Okay, so this is my series 1 and series 2. Now what I'm trying to do is, I'm here series 1 dot append and series 2. So this is what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to create a series 3 element, which is an append of series 2 on top of my series 1. So series 1, after series 1, I'm adding series 2 on top of that. So now look at how my data looks like. Okay. So just look at this. So now I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 from my first series. And again, the indexing starts from here 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see this again, the same indexing starts. Okay. Now, what if I have to call the series 3 of element of 0? If I have to call the 0th index. So here it's a contradiction, right? So 0 is having two values. 0 is 1 and also 0 is having element as 10, right? So right, this is a problem. If I call 0, 0, I'll get two elements here, 1 and 10, which is wrong, right? Which is wrong. So to solve this problem, we have a very good function called as reset index. Okay, so the reset underscore index. If I call reset underscore index, then here series 3 on top of reset index, I'm going to use it like this. So now I have the elements. So the indexes here got reset. So till 8 is fine, right? So I have the elements here like till 8 is pretty much fine. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 here, right? Now after this 9 starts, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I have my another set of indexes available here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. So this is the beauty of reset index. So we can work on that. So I think we have a question from Akash. He says, can you please explain how dot operator works? If you're talking about specifically like this dot, how I'm using dot, I can tell you it's more an object oriented programming. So that is the reason why it is an object of the class type here. But again, if you're talking about dot product in terms of mathematical calculation of matrix, then let the numpys come. Okay, so I'll try to cover the dot operator very clearly in the numpy array. So that will be more making sense, right? So, but again, if you're talking about this dot, why I'm writing dot, this is pretty much like an object-oriented programming. So all of these functions like reset index or absolute or append or so whatever I'm doing, right? This is one of the other object of my available data class. So here the data class is series, right? So on series we have these object as my further methods available in the data class. Cool. So likewise, we have certain other, so I'll quickly cover them. So, and then we'll wrap up the session. So I'll try to quickly cover. So we have another function called as AsType. So AsType is again very interesting function, which is changing the data type to whatever I want. Okay. So for example, here I have the series element, right? So I have series element, I'm passing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20, and then I have in the between I have A and B as well, and then I'm passing -1. Now, if we check, if we just simply pass series 1 for example, right? So now what I can see is I have this elements 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 AB printed here, right? Now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make this series, and on top of this I'm converting dot AsType as my string object, dot str object. Okay, so now I'm converting this to AsType str, and now if I'm printing it like this, can you see this? Now I'm making sure that this entire data types here, entire values are now converted to my string. So for example, here if I call series 1 dot 0, I have the element has 1 here. So I'm making sure that all my data, I'm converting this series to my object data type. Okay, so for example, now just make this to 30 and make this to 40, then it'll be more making sense to you. Okay, so now I'll just make this as commented for now, and then I print series 1. Okay. So now in this case we're seeing this is like integer 64, right? The data type is integer 64. But what if I run this? So I change the AsType to str, and now after doing str I'm calling series 1. So in this case I'm making sure that the elements is now there is some issue in this. Let me just check this. If I mark this as A, there is some issue in my just a minute. Right, so I want this to be considered as my string now. Okay, so this is, I think, giving me an error here. So this is pretty much fine. So let's leave this for now. I think this is giving me an error. So we can obviously change the string type, but still it is not converting into string. So maybe there is some concern. But anyway, so let me fix that part and I'll come back to you. But again, for now, I think you can still stick to these topics which you have learned so far. So we are talking about the available functionalities we have in Pandas, and we are talking about series right now. So we'll try to cover this cover the topics from here on tomorrow. But again, for now, let's keep it to this part. So whatever we have learned today is talking about my series. So we talked about how we create the series element two ways. So we create the series element here either by passing the list of elements, or we can also pass a dictionary here. So ultimately, the objective is two important things which I'm passing. Majorly important thing. First is my data, and the second is my index. We can skip the index. We can skip the data also if we want to create an empty series. But still, if you're passing the data and if you're passing the indexes here, that means that I'm manually creating the series the way I want. Okay, this is what the series element talks about. And as I said, we can also create using a dictionary element. So in this dictionary will become the key, basically my index, and the value will become my data points, right? And also we can filter. If we pass the indexes separately on my dictionary element, in this case, the indexes will behave as a filter, not as a like an assignment indexes. Okay, and then we started talking about some of the interesting functionalities available in series. So we have talked about absolute, we talked about reset index, and we talked about like some other things as well. So but again, we'll continue tomorrow on other set of functions available, and in fact I'll try to introduce you to data frames. So we'll start from data frames. So we'll quickly cover the remaining topics on series tomorrow, and then we'll start with the data frames tomorrow. So data frames would be where we'll be talking about how to kind of convert the existing data into a data frame. So we already have seen a glimpse of data frame when we're talking about reading the file as a CSV format using pandas or data frame. We already saw the glimpse of that. But here now, once we have the data in form of a data frame, we'll see how we're going to work on those. So what are the operations which is possible on data frame? So we'll quickly see that. Right, so we'll finish up a series tomorrow quickly in 5 minutes, 10 minutes tomorrow, and then we'll start with data frames. Okay. Any questions, guys? Anything which you're not able to understand? Anything which you want me to cover again? Any last moment questions if anybody is having? Or I hope this is making sense, right? So you're able to connect to what we are doing. Right, guys? Cool. So thank you so much. Then I'll give your evening back. Let's meet tomorrow the same time, 10 p.m. and we can pretty much talk about the other things tomorrow. So we'll start with series and we'll finish up, and then we'll talk about data frames tomorrow. Great, guys. Thank you so much. Bye bye.